The clock on my computer screen read 11:30 a.m. exactly. My hand hovered over the keyboard, fingers trembling slightly. 8 years of work. 8 years of late nights, weekend debugging sessions, and building something from nothing. 8 years that they dismissed in a 15-minute meeting. The main server controls were right there on my screen, waiting. One command. That's all it would take. I took a deep breath and typed the shutdown sequence. Enter. The building's network backbone began its cascading failure. Every server, every connection, every piece of infrastructure I'd spent nearly a decade building started going dark. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Unknown number. I let it ring. It buzzed again, and again. The fourth call I answered. His voice was panicked, desperate, nothing like the smug tone he'd used 3 days ago when security escorted me out. Zoe, please, the servers are down. Everything's down, I don't know what's happening. Now that got your attention, didn't it? Welcome to the Payback Office channel, where we share stories of workplace betrayal and the sweet taste of professional justice. These aren't just tales of revenge, they're reminders that sometimes standing up for yourself means watching everything burn. Before we dive in, the community here is growing, and reaching 8,000 subscribers would mean the world. If you enjoy stories about workplace karma, hit that subscribe button. It helps build this space for all of us who have been underestimated at work. My name is Zoe Martinez. For 8 years, I was the senior network architect at Helix Dynamics, a mid-sized tech firm in Portland. I came from a middle-class family, nothing fancy, nothing lacking. But my parents taught me something valuable. Treat everyone with respect and never let success make you forget what it feels like to struggle. That empathy made me a better colleague and a better leader. It also made me the perfect target for people who saw kindness as weakness. The story really begins 8 years before that phone call. I was 26, fresh off a successful stint at a startup that had been acquired, and I was hungry to build something meaningful. Helix Dynamics was expanding rapidly, and their infrastructure was a mess. Legacy systems barely talking to each other, security holes you could drive a truck through, and a network architecture that had been pieced together by 3 different contractors who apparently never communicated. They needed someone to come in and rebuild everything from the ground up. The interview process was standard. 3 rounds, technical assessment, culture fit discussion. The hiring manager was a woman named Denise Harper, VP of Technology Operations. She was sharp, direct, and refreshingly honest about the chaos I'd be walking into. I won't sugarcoat this, she told me. Our infrastructure is held together with duct tape and prayers. We need someone who can envision a complete overhaul and actually execute it. The budget is there. The executive support is there. What we need is the right person. I laid out my vision. A complete network redesign, phased implementation to avoid disruption, modern security protocols, scalability built in from day one, and comprehensive documentation. Denise loved it. I started 3 weeks later. Those first 6 months were brutal. 70-hour weeks, mapping every connection, documenting every system, identifying every vulnerability. The existing IT team was small and overwhelmed. There was Owen, the systems administrator who'd been with the company for 12 years. There was Lisa, a junior network tech with great instincts but limited experience. And there was Keith, the help desk manager who spent most of his time putting out fires. They were skeptical at first, but I didn't come in acting like I knew everything. I asked questions. I listened to their pain points. I acknowledged the amazing work they'd done keeping things running despite impossible constraints. Slowly, they became allies. The technical work was exhilarating. I created a hybrid cloud infrastructure that would give Helix the flexibility to scale while maintaining security and performance. I negotiated contracts with vendors, squeezing every dollar of value from our budget. I implemented redundancy systems so a single point of failure wouldn't bring down the entire network. I built monitoring systems that could predict problems before they became critical, and I documented everything. Every decision, every configuration, every password and protocol. The documentation alone was over 200 pages. Denise was thrilled. 6 months in, I got my first raise and a promotion to senior network architect. At 27, I was one of the youngest people at that level in the company. The network I designed wasn't just functional, it was elegant. Every piece fit together perfectly. It was my masterpiece. Year 2 brought new challenges. The company was growing faster than projected, and my architecture needed to scale with it. We opened 2 new regional offices, which meant extending the network infrastructure to support remote teams. I designed a VPN system that was both secure and user-friendly. I implemented collaboration tools that actually worked. Employee satisfaction with IT services went up significantly. Help desk tickets decreased because systems were more stable and intuitive. Denise started bringing me into executive meetings to explain technical decisions. I was becoming a trusted voice in the company's strategic planning. That's also when I first met Walter Strauss. Walter was the CEO and founder of Helix Dynamics. He'd built the company from nothing 15 years earlier, and he still ran it with a hands-on approach that was sometimes brilliant and sometimes maddening. He was in his early 50s, energetic, charismatic, and absolutely convinced of his own genius. Our first real interaction was during a quarterly all-hands meeting. After the meeting, he sought me out. "Zoe, right. Denise tells me you're the reason we haven't had a major system failure in over a year." I nodded. "The team has done great work. We've built something solid." He smiled, that practiced CEO smile. "Don't be modest. I've seen the reports. What you've built here is special. Keep it up." It felt good to be recognized. Looking back, I should have been more cautious about that feeling. Year 3 was when everything started changing. Walter's stepbrother joined the company. His name was Garrett Strauss. Same last name, completely different pedigree. Where Walter had built his success through relentless work and some lucky breaks, Garrett had coasted on family connections and an MBA from a school that valued networking over knowledge. He was 38, well-dressed, well-spoken, and absolutely lacking in substance. Walter hired him as director of business development. At first, Garrett stayed in his lane. Business development was nowhere near my department, and we barely interacted. The few times we crossed paths in the office, he was pleasant enough. Surface-level friendly, the way people are when they don't really see you as important. That lasted about 4 months. The shift happened during a company retreat. This particular retreat was at a resort about an hour outside Portland. The evening was relaxed, open bar, casual conversations. I was talking with Owen and Lisa about some upcoming infrastructure upgrades when Garrett appeared with a drink in hand. "Mind if I join?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Zoe, I've been meaning to talk to you. I've been reviewing our IT infrastructure, and I'm really impressed with what you've built." Warning bells should have gone off immediately, but I was young and stupid and hungry for validation. "Thanks, Garrett. It's been a lot of work, but we're in a good place now." He leaned in conspiratorially. "Here's the thing. I'm working on a major deal, potential partnership that could triple our client base. But the technical due diligence is going to be intense. They'll want to see our infrastructure, understand our capabilities. Would you be willing to put together a presentation? Nothing too detailed, just the high-level architecture and our competitive advantages." It seemed reasonable, so I said yes. Over the next 2 weeks, I created a comprehensive presentation. Network topology, security protocols, scalability metrics, disaster recovery procedures, everything that made our infrastructure special. I included enough detail to be impressive without revealing anything proprietary, or so I thought. I sent the presentation to Garrett and offered to walk him through it. He declined. "This is perfect, Zoe. Exactly what I needed." I didn't hear anything for 3 weeks. Then Denise called me into her office. She looked concerned. "Zoe, I need to ask you something. Did you give Garrett Strauss detailed documentation of our network architecture?" My stomach dropped. I gave him a presentation for a client pitch. High-level overview, nothing sensitive. "Why?" Denise pulled up something on her computer and turned the screen toward me. It was my presentation, but modified. Someone had added details I'd never included. Specific IP ranges, vendor contracts, custom code I'd written, security vulnerabilities we'd patched. Information that could only have come from the full documentation stored on a secure server with limited access. "This showed up in a board presentation yesterday," Denise said quietly. Garrett presented it as his own work. He's proposing a complete restructuring of the IT department with himself as Chief Technology Officer. The room spun. That's my work, my architecture, my documentation. He couldn't have created this without accessing files he had no authorization to see. Denise nodded. I know, I've already flagged it with Walter, but here's the problem. Garrett claims you gave him everything voluntarily, that you were collaborating on a strategic initiative. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. That's a lie. Denise believed me, I could see it in her eyes. But she also looked defeated. Walter wants to meet with both of you tomorrow, be prepared to defend yourself. And Zoe, bring evidence. I spent that entire night building my case. Email timestamps showing exactly what I'd sent Garrett and when. Server logs proving when the detailed documentation had been accessed. Version control history showing I'd created everything he was claiming as his own work. I had metadata, timestamps, digital fingerprints that conclusively proved the architecture was mine. Walking into Walter's office the next morning, I felt confident. The truth was on my side. Walter sat behind his massive desk, Garrett in one of the visitor chairs, looking relaxed and confident. Denise stood near the window, arms crossed. I took the remaining chair. Walter got straight to it. We have a problem. Garrett presented a technology infrastructure plan to the board yesterday. Zoe claims significant portions of that work are hers. Garrett says they collaborated. I need to understand what actually happened. I opened my laptop. I can show you exactly what happened. I gave Garrett a basic presentation 2 weeks ago for what he said was a client pitch. The presentation he showed the board includes detailed documentation from secure servers. Documentation I created over the past 3 years. Documentation he had no authorization to access. I pulled up the evidence. Dates, times, access logs, everything. It was airtight. Garrett didn't even flinch. He smiled slightly and looked at Walter. Zoe is absolutely right that she created the foundational work. She's a talented technician. But what I presented to the board wasn't just a technical document. It was a strategic vision for how technology can drive business growth. I took her technical specifications and transformed them into a business asset. The condescension in the word technician was deliberate. I kept my voice steady. The strategic vision in that presentation is also mine. The scalability planning, the cost projections, the risk mitigation strategies, all of it. Walter looked uncomfortable. Garrett, did you access secure files without authorization? Garrett's answer was smooth, practiced. I requested access from IT. I assumed the request went through proper channels. If there was an administrative oversight, that's not my fault. The meeting went in circles for another 30 minutes. I presented evidence. Garrett reframed everything as collaboration or business strategy. Walter grew increasingly frustrated. Finally, he held up his hand. Enough. Here's what's going to happen. Zoe, you clearly did the technical work, and that's valued. Garrett, you identified the strategic opportunity. Moving forward, I want you both to work together on the IT restructuring proposal. Joint ownership, joint credit. It was a political solution. A bad compromise that pleased no one but avoided confrontation. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, Walter, with respect, this isn't a collaboration. This is theft of intellectual property. His expression hardened. Zoe, I appreciate your passion, but in a growing company, we need to think beyond individual ownership. The work you do here belongs to Helix Dynamics. Are you willing to be a team player, or do we have a problem? The threat was clear. I swallowed my anger. I'm a team player. I walked out of Walter's office, my laptop clutched against my chest like a shield. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. In the hallway, Garrett caught up to me. He grabbed my elbow, fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. I jerked my arm away and spun to face him. Don't ever touch me again. His smile was predatory. Relax, Zoe. I just wanted to say there are no hard feelings. You're good at what you do, really good. But you need to understand how things work at this level. It's not about who builds what. It's about who presents it, who sells it. That's never going to be you. I stepped closer, dropping my voice so only he could hear. You stole my work. You accessed confidential files without authorization. That's not business strategy, Garrett. That's corporate espionage. He laughed, actually laughed. Prove it. "Oh wait, you already tried, and Walter chose me. He'll always choose me, I'm family, you're just an employee." He walked away, still chuckling. I stood there in the empty hallway, breathing hard. That's when I made a decision. Not consciously, not with planning or forethought, but somewhere deep in my brain, a switch flipped. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. That night, I stayed late in the office. Everyone else had gone home. The building was silent except for the hum of servers and the occasional click of the HVAC system. I sat at my desk and started building something new, not infrastructure, not documentation, insurance. I created a backdoor into the network. Nothing obvious, nothing that would show up in standard security audits. A ghost admin account buried so deep in the system architecture that only someone who had built everything from scratch would know where to look. Access credentials that bypassed every security protocol. Remote entry points that appeared to be routine maintenance functions. I told myself it was just a precaution, a safety measure in case I ever got locked out of systems I'd built, but I knew what it really was. It was a weapon, and I was loading it, one line of code at a time. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. Garrett scheduled daily meetings, always positioning himself as the leader and me as the support staff. He'd ask me technical questions, then present my answers to stakeholders as his own insights. He rewrote my documentation in his own words, changing nothing substantive, but ensuring his name was on every page. The joint presentation to the board was excruciating. Garrett did 90% of the talking. When board members asked technical questions, he'd defer to me with a patronizing, "Zoe can speak to the technical details." After the presentation, the board approved the IT restructuring. Garrett was promoted to Chief Technology Officer. I remained Senior Network Architect, now reporting to someone who'd stolen my work and had a fraction of my technical knowledge. The next 5 years were a slow erosion of everything I'd built. Garrett made decisions that ranged from misguided to actively harmful. He pushed for flashy technology solutions that sounded impressive to non-technical executives, but created massive technical debt. He hired consultants who didn't understand our infrastructure and made recommendations that contradicted fundamental design principles. Through it all, I kept the systems running. When Garrett's pet projects failed, I fixed them. When his promises to executives couldn't be kept, I found workarounds. I did this because I cared about Helix dynamics and the people who depended on our systems. Year 5 under Garrett, the company landed a massive government contract. The client's technical requirements were complex, and the implementation timeline was aggressive. Garrett promised we could deliver. In the kickoff meeting, he laid out an implementation plan that was completely unrealistic. I tried to raise concerns privately. He dismissed them. "Zoe, you're too focused on problems. I need solutions." So I provided solutions. Revised timeline, additional resources, risk mitigation strategies. He ignored all of it and stuck to his original promises. The implementation was a disaster, not because the technology was wrong, but because Garrett's timeline was impossible. We worked around the clock trying to meet his commitments. When the client started complaining, Garrett called an emergency meeting with Walter, the board, and the entire executive team. And he blamed me. The technical team, led by Zoe, has failed to execute on the plan we agreed to. Despite repeated warnings and offers of support, they've fallen behind schedule. I sat there, stunned. I'd never agreed to his timeline. I'd explicitly said it was impossible. But I'd made my objections in private conversations and emails. He'd made his promises in board meetings and client calls. Walter was livid. "Zoe, I trusted you to deliver on this. What happened?" I could have thrown Garrett under the bus, could have forwarded the emails where I'd warned him, but I also knew how that would play. In a fight between the CTO, who was the CEO's stepbrother, and the network architect who kept pointing out problems, there was only one winner. So I took responsibility for the delay and presented a recovery plan. Extended timeline, additional resources, specific milestones. Walter approved it grudgingly, with a warning that my performance was being closely monitored. We delivered the project, 3 weeks late, but we delivered. The client was satisfied. The company held a celebration event. Walter gave a speech praising Garrett's leadership and vision. my name wasn't mentioned once. That was the moment I started planning my exit. I updated my resume. I reached out to former colleagues. I started taking calls from recruiters. Then I discovered the embezzlement. I was reviewing vendor contracts as part of a routine audit when I noticed something odd. We were paying a consulting firm called Apex Technical Solutions a significant monthly retainer. $50,000 a month for the past 18 months. $900,000 total. I'd never heard of Apex Technical Solutions. I checked with the team. Owen hadn't worked with them. Lisa hadn't heard of them. Keith had no record of them providing any services. I dug deeper. The contract had been signed by Garrett. The invoices were approved by Garrett. The services described were vague. I searched for Apex Technical Solutions online. No website, no LinkedIn presence, no public record except a business registration filed in Delaware 2 years earlier. I pulled the corporate records. 3 hours of research later, I had my answer. The beneficial owner of Apex Technical Solutions was Garrett Strauss. He'd created a shell company, hired himself as a consultant, and funneled $900,000 of Helix's money into his own pocket. It was textbook embezzlement. I sat at my desk, staring at the evidence, and made a decision. I could report this to Walter. But Walter had chosen Garrett over me, over the truth, over basic fairness, time and time again. Family loyalty. Or I could use this, not for money, for justice. I spent 3 weeks building my leverage. I documented every fraudulent invoice, every fake consulting report, every dollar that had flowed from Helix to Garrett's pocket. I created a comprehensive evidence package that would be impossible to refute. I encrypted it and stored copies in multiple secure locations. Then I waited for my moment. It came during the annual strategic planning meeting. Every executive, every department head, every senior manager. Garrett was scheduled to present the technology roadmap. I sat in the back, watching Garrett present slides that were, once again, based on work I'd done. He talked about innovation and leadership. He talked about himself endlessly, while the audience nodded along. The presentation ended to applause. Walter stood up. "Garrett, this is exceptional work. I'm pleased to announce that, effective immediately, Garrett is being promoted to Chief Information and Technology Officer with expanded responsibilities across all digital operations." More applause. Walter continued. "As part of this restructuring, we're going to be streamlining the IT department, eliminating redundancies." My phone buzzed. Email from HR. Meeting scheduled for immediately after the strategic planning session. I knew what was coming. The HR meeting room was cold. Deliberately cold, I thought, like they wanted people uncomfortable. The HR manager, Patricia Chen, sat across from me with a lawyer I didn't recognize. Denise was there too, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. That told me everything. Patricia slid a document across the table. "Zoe, we're restructuring the technology department. Your position has been eliminated. We're offering a generous severance package." "How generous?" I interrupted. She blinked, thrown off her script. 12 weeks salary, continuation of benefits, and outplacement services. "That's not generous, that's standard. I've given you 8 years. I built every system you're currently running. 12 weeks is an insult." The lawyer leaned forward. "Miss Martinez, this is a business decision, not a reflection on your performance." "Really? Because 5 minutes ago, Walter announced Garrett's promotion while simultaneously eliminating my position. That seems pretty specific to me." Patricia's expression hardened, professional courtesy evaporating. "The offer is what it is. You can sign the agreement now, or we can reduce it to the legal minimum." I looked at Denise. Finally, she met my eyes. She was crying, silent tears running down her face, but she wasn't saying anything, wasn't defending me. She'd already lost whatever fight she'd put up. I picked up the severance agreement. Read it carefully. The non-compete clause was aggressive. 12 months, covering basically every tech company in the region. Non-disparagement clause that would prevent me from telling anyone what had actually happened. And buried in the legal language, a requirement to turn over all access credentials, documentation, and company property within 1 hour. "You want me out of the building in an hour?" Patricia nodded. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. The humiliation was deliberate. They wanted me to feel small, powerless, disposable. I signed the agreement, carefully, making sure my signature was clear and legally binding, because I was going to need that employment contract to be airtight for what came next. Security arrived, 2 guards I didn't recognize. They walked me to my desk while everyone watched. The entire office had gone silent. People pretended to work, but I could feel their eyes tracking me. Owen looked devastated. Lisa had her hand over her mouth. Keith was staring at his monitor like he could disappear into it. I packed slowly, personal photos, a coffee mug, my backup hard drive with personal files, and one other thing nobody noticed. A USB drive from the back of my desk drawer. A drive containing every password, every system backdoor, every piece of access I'd built into the infrastructure over 8 years. The drive I'd prepared months ago. Insurance. The security guards walked me through the building, past conference rooms where colleagues quickly looked away, past Garrett's office where he stood at his window, watching. He raised his coffee mug to me, a toast, a victory lap. I smiled at him, not a friendly smile, a promise. When you fire the person who built your entire infrastructure, you better make sure you understand how it works. You better make sure you've changed all the credentials. You better make sure there are no backdoors, no remote access points. Garrett didn't understand the infrastructure. Walter didn't care about technical details, and HR just wanted to minimize legal risk. None of them thought about the fact that I'd built everything from scratch. I knew every server, every connection, every vulnerability. And I'd been very thorough in my documentation. But what they didn't know was that I'd also been thorough in building administrative access points that didn't appear in any official documentation. Not for malicious purposes originally, just as a precaution. Call it disaster recovery, or call it insurance. That night, I logged into Helix's network remotely using credentials they didn't know existed. I reviewed the current state of the systems. Everything was running smoothly, because of course it was. I'd built it to be stable. I planted a simple script, deep in the system code where no one would find it without knowing exactly where to look. A timed shutdown sequence. Completely reversible, no permanent damage, but comprehensive. Every server, every connection, everything. I set it to trigger in 3 days at 11:30 a.m. right in the middle of the business day. Maximum disruption. Then I waited. The 3 days were surreal. I was unemployed for the first time in my adult life. I should have been panicking, updating my resume, applying for jobs. Instead, I felt calm, almost peaceful. I went to the gym. I caught up on sleep. I ignored the emails from Helix HR about exit paperwork. I watched the clock. Day 3. 11:30 a.m. approached. I imagined the scene. Garrett in his office, probably on a conference call. Walter in a meeting with potential investors. Owen and Lisa and Keith, keeping everything running, unaware of what was about to happen. 11:29 a.m. I felt a momentary pang of guilt. The IT team didn't deserve this. But they'd also stood by while I was pushed out. 11:30 a.m. the script executed. 500 miles away in Helix Dynamics server room, systems began shutting down. Not dramatically. Just quietly, systematically going offline. First the edge services, then the internal network, then the databases, then the core infrastructure. Within 5 minutes, Helix Dynamics' entire digital presence was dark. No email, no file servers, no customer-facing applications, no phone system. Complete, total, silent shutdown. My phone rang at 11:37 a.m. unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again. I let it go to voicemail. A text message appeared. "Zoe, this is Garrett. We have a situation. Please call me immediately." I deleted it. Another call, this time from Denise. I almost answered. Almost. But Denise had been part of the decision to let me go, even if she'd objected. The call went to voicemail. More calls, more texts. Garrett, Walter. Phone numbers I didn't recognize. All of them suddenly very interested in talking to me. At noon, my phone rang from Garrett's number. This time I answered. "Hello?" His voice was panicked, professional composure completely gone. "Zoe. Thank God, the entire network is down. Everything. We've been trying to restart the servers, but nothing's responding. Owen says it's like they're in some kind of shutdown loop. We can't override it. I let the silence stretch. Zoe, are you there? I know you're upset about the restructuring, but we need your help. This is a crisis. I kept my voice neutral. That does sound serious. Another pause. I could hear the confusion in his voice. Yes, it's extremely serious. We have customer obligations. We have the government contract. If we're down for more than a few hours, we could breach our SLA agreements. We could lose clients. We could face legal action. I made a sympathetic noise. That's definitely a problem. Have you contacted your IT team? The frustration in his voice was growing. The IT team is here. They can't figure it out. Owen said this is infrastructure level, the kind of thing only you would fully understand. Please, Zoe, I know we didn't part on good terms, but we need your expertise. Name your price, consulting fees, whatever you want. There it was. The admission that he needed me, that he'd never understood the systems he'd claimed as his own work, that without me, he was helpless. I could have said yes, could have demanded an enormous consulting fee, fixed the problem, taken the money, walked away, but money wasn't the point. Garrett, I appreciate you reaching out, but I signed a severance agreement 3 days ago that included a very clear separation from the company. I no longer have any obligation to Helix Dynamics, and frankly, I'm not interested in helping. His voice rose. Zoe, you can't do this. You can't just let the company crash because you're upset about being laid off. That's unprofessional. That's sabotage. The accusation hung in the air. Interesting that he jumped straight to sabotage. Sabotage is a serious allegation, Garrett. Are you suggesting I did something to cause this problem? He backtracked immediately. No. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying that we need help, and you're the most qualified person to provide it. Please, just tell us what you need. I thought about it, pretended to think about it anyway. Okay, here's what I need. I need a formal apology from Walter for how I was treated. I need acknowledgement that the network architecture was my work, not yours. I need my job back, with a promotion to Chief Technology Officer, reporting directly to the CEO. I need your resignation. And I need all of this in writing before I even consider looking at your systems. The silence on his end was absolute. Then quietly, you know I can't agree to that. I smiled. Then I guess you should call those consultants you're always hiring. Good luck, Garrett. I hung up. The phone rang immediately. I declined the call. A text from Denise. Zoe, please, I know you're angry, but people are counting on these systems. Please help. That one stung. She was right. Real people were being affected. But real people had also been affected by my firing. Actions have consequences. Sometimes the people in power finally had to face them. I turned off my phone. The afternoon passed. I went for a long walk, made dinner, watched a movie, tried not to think about what was happening at Helix Dynamics. At 8 p.m., I turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, 61 text messages. I scrolled through the texts. Variations on please help and we need you and this is serious. One from Walter. Zoe, I'm asking you personally. Let's talk. One from Garrett. Fine, you want me to beg. I'm begging. And one from a number I didn't recognize. Miss Martinez, this is Timothy Walsh with Morrison and Associates Law Firm. We represent Helix Dynamics. Please contact me immediately. Interesting, they were escalating to legal threats. I called Timothy Walsh. He answered on the first ring. Miss Martinez? This is Zoe. You left me a message. His voice was professionally cold. Miss Martinez, I'm calling on behalf of Helix Dynamics regarding the catastrophic system failure they experienced today. They believe you may have information relevant to resolving this crisis. I kept my voice equally professional. I was an employee of Helix Dynamics until 3 days ago. Since my separation, I have no access to their systems and no knowledge of any current technical issues. A pause. Miss Martinez, let me be direct. If it's discovered that you took any action to deliberately cause this outage, you could face serious legal consequences. Sabotage, violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, breach of your employment agreement. We're talking civil liability and potentially criminal charges. The threat was clear. Mr. Walsh, are you accusing me of a crime? Because if so, I think this conversation should end and resume with my attorney present. He softened slightly. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm simply making you aware of the legal landscape. I'm also authorized to discuss a consulting arrangement. Helix is prepared to pay you $25,000 to assist in resolving this technical issue. $25,000 for 1 day of consulting. They were desperate. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Walsh, but I'm not interested. If Helix Dynamics has experienced a technical failure, they should work with their current IT team to resolve it. His voice hardened again. You're making a mistake, Miss Martinez. Think very carefully about the consequences of your actions. I hung up. At 9 p.m., my doorbell rang, then immediately rang again, and again. Someone was leaning on it. I looked through the peephole and my blood went cold. Garrett. He was alone, but his face was red, his tie loosened, his usually perfect hair disheveled. He looked unhinged. I didn't open the door. Go away, Garrett, or I'm calling the police. His voice came through the door, loud enough that neighbors would hear. You think you're so smart? You think you can destroy me? I know what you did, Zoe. I know you sabotaged the network, and I'm going to prove it. You're drunk, get off my property. He slammed his fist against the door, hard enough to rattle the frame. 800 people are going to lose their jobs because of you. The company is going to collapse. And for what? Because you got fired? Because your feelings got hurt. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, and made sure he could hear me speaking to the operator. Yes, there's an intoxicated man threatening me at my front door. I need police assistance. I gave them my address. Through the door, I heard Garrett swear. This isn't over, Zoe. You're going to regret this. Then footsteps, the sound of his car starting, tires squealing as he drove away. The police arrived 10 minutes later. I gave a statement, described what happened, showed them the Ring camera footage of Garrett pounding on my door. They took notes, said they'd follow up. I knew they wouldn't, but now it was documented. If Garrett tried anything else, there was a paper trail. I didn't sleep that night. Sat up with all the lights on, a baseball bat next to the couch, jumping at every sound. I'd expected pushback, expected anger, but I hadn't expected Garrett to show up at my house. The game had just gotten dangerous. At 10 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Walter Strauss stood on my porch, alone, looking exhausted. I considered not answering, but curiosity won. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Walter, he tried to smile, failed. Zoe, thank you for opening the door. Can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe. You have 5 minutes. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd never seen from him before. The network is still down. We've had consultants from 3 different firms working on it all day. Nobody can figure it out. Owen says it's like the systems are locked in some kind of recursive shutdown loop. The only person who understands the architecture well enough to potentially fix this is you. I said nothing. He continued. I know we didn't handle your departure well. I know you felt undervalued. And I know that family dynamics complicated my judgment where Garrett was concerned. I should have listened to you more. I should have recognized your contributions more clearly. It was close to an apology, not quite there, but close. Is Garrett here too? Walter shook his head. No, this is just me, person to person. I built this company from nothing. 15 years of my life. And right now it's falling apart. I have 300 employees who might not have jobs if we can't get systems back online. I have clients threatening to sue. I have investors panicking. I need help, Zoe. I need your help. The vulnerability was probably genuine. Walter was facing the potential collapse of his life's work, but he'd made choices that led to this moment. Walter, did Garrett tell you how the network went down? He shook his head. Nobody knows. It just cascaded across all systems simultaneously. Garrett said it might be a cyber attack, but there's no evidence of external intrusion. I let that sit for a moment. So Garrett, your chief information and technology officer, can't explain what happened to the infrastructure he claims to have designed. Can't fix it. Can't even diagnose it. That doesn't concern you. Walter's expression shifted. What are you saying? I met his eyes. I'm saying that Garrett has been taking credit for work he didn't do for 5 years. I'm saying he doesn't understand the systems he's supposed to be managing. I'm saying that promoting him and firing me was a catastrophic business decision, and now you're experiencing the consequences. Walter's face reddened. If you caused this outage deliberately, that's a crime. I smiled slightly. I didn't say I caused anything. I said your CTO doesn't understand your infrastructure. Those are different statements. But let me ask you something, Walter. If your network architect of 8 years gets fired, and 3 days later your entire network fails in a way nobody can fix, what does that tell you about who is actually keeping things running? He stared at me, the implications settling in. Either I'd sabotage the systems, which would be illegal but would also prove I had capabilities his current team lacked, or the systems had failed naturally because the person who understood them was gone, which proved his decision to eliminate my position was disastrous. Either way, he needed me. What do you want? Walter asked quietly. I'd been waiting for that question. First, I want the truth acknowledged, publicly, that I designed and built Helix's infrastructure, that the work Garrett took credit for was mine. I want that stated clearly to the board, to the executive team, to everyone. Walter nodded slowly. Okay, what else? Second, I want a full investigation into Garrett's consulting contracts, specifically payments to Apex Technical Solutions. I think you'll find that very interesting. His eyes widened slightly. He didn't know. Third, I want my position back, not as senior network architect reporting to Garrett, as chief technology officer reporting to you with full authority over all technical operations. Walter hesitated. That's Garrett's position, I shrugged. Then you have a choice to make. Your stepbrother who stole work, possibly stole money, and definitely can't fix your current crisis. Or me, the person who actually built everything and can get your company running again. The calculation played across his face. Family versus business, loyalty versus survival. Finally, he spoke. If I agree to this, if I give you what you're asking, can you fix the network? I considered how to answer. The honest truth was that I could fix it in about 30 seconds, but honesty wasn't the play here. I can fix it, but I need the agreements in writing first. Employment contract, title, salary, authority. And I need Garrett's resignation letter, all of it documented before I touch a single server. Walter pulled out his phone. I'll have HR draft a contract tonight. You'll have it by morning. He nodded. First thing tomorrow, my word on it. He turned to leave, then looked back. Zoe, did you do this? Did you cause the shutdown? I met his gaze. Walter, you fired the person who built your infrastructure. You promoted someone who didn't understand it. You made a business decision. I'm just the one who knows how to fix it. Does it matter how we got here? He studied my face, looking for a confession or denial. He didn't find either. After a moment, he walked back to his car and drove away. I closed the door and allowed myself a small smile. The first crack in the armor. At 6 a.m., my email pinged. Contract from Helix Dynamics HR. I read it carefully. Chief Technology Officer position. Salary bump of 40%. Direct report to CEO. Full authority over IT operations, infrastructure, and technology strategy. Standard benefits and equity package. The only catch was a clause requiring me to assist in resolving the current technical crisis as my first priority. Fair enough, I signed it and sent it back. At 7 a.m., Walter called. Contract is executed. You start today. Can you come to the office? I could have drawn it out, made him wait, but the point had been made. I'll be there in an hour. The drive to Helix Dynamics felt different. 3 days ago, I'd left with a cardboard box and a security escort. Today, I was returning as CTO. I walked through the front doors. The receptionist looked surprised to see me. I walked through the building, past the IT department where Owen and Lisa were hunched over laptops, looking exhausted. I knocked on Walter's office door. Come in. Walter looked like he hadn't slept. Garrett was there too, standing near the window, arms crossed. Zoe, thank you for coming. Walter gestured to a chair. We've executed your contract. You're officially our Chief Technology Officer as of this morning. Garrett's expression was stone. Walter, we talked about this. I can fix the network. I just need more time. Walter shook his head. It's been 18 hours, Garrett. We've lost clients. We've breached contracts. Zoe is taking over IT operations effective immediately. Garrett turned to me. The professional mask was gone, pure anger underneath. This is extortion. You caused this crisis, and now you're profiting from it. I kept my voice calm. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any evidence? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The timing is suspicious. I turned to Walter. Do you want to spend time investigating theories, or do you want me to fix the network? Walter didn't hesitate. Fix the network. Garrett, we'll discuss your transition later. Right now, I need you to give Zoe full access and cooperation. Garrett looked like he'd been slapped. My transition? Walter, I'm your brother. Walter's expression was hard. Stepbrother. And right now, you're the CTO who couldn't keep the network running or fix it when it failed. We'll talk later. Please give Zoe whatever she needs. The dismissal was clear. Garrett stared at Walter for a long moment, then looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. He walked out, slamming the door. Walter winced. That was unpleasant. I didn't disagree. Should we get started on the recovery? He nodded gratefully. Please, what do you need? I pulled out my laptop. Just network access. I'll handle the rest. Within minutes, I was logged into the core systems. The shutdown script was still running, exactly as I'd designed it. I located it in the system files, disabled it, and initiated the standard startup sequence. Servers began coming back online. Network connections restored. Databases synchronized. The entire infrastructure I'd built started recovering, system by system. It took about 45 minutes for everything to come back fully online. When the last system showed green, I closed my laptop. We're back. All systems operational. Walter slumped in his chair, relief flooding his face. Just like that, I shrugged. Once I identified the issue, the fix was straightforward. The challenge was understanding the architecture well enough to diagnose the problem. That's where institutional knowledge matters. He understood the implication. Without me, they'd still be down, possibly for days. Thank you, Zoe. Seriously, you saved the company. I stood up. I'm going to go brief the IT team and make sure everything is stable. We should meet later to discuss strategic priorities and the transition plan. He nodded. Absolutely. And Zoe, I'm sorry for how things went before. You deserved better. It was a real apology this time. Thank you, Walter. I appreciate that. Walking down to the IT department, I could hear raised voices before I turned the corner. Owen and someone from facilities were arguing. The server room door was propped open, revealing chaos inside. Equipment had been pulled out, cables disconnected. The consultants Walter had hired had literally torn apart my infrastructure trying to find the problem. What happened here? My voice cut through the argument. Owen spun around. Zoe? Oh, thank God. These idiots from Synergy Solutions started ripping out hardware at midnight, said they needed to check for compromised equipment. I tried to stop them, but Garrett authorized it. I stepped into the server room. Thousands of dollars of equipment scattered across the floor. Critical systems that should never have been touched were sitting disconnected. If I hadn't stopped the shutdown sequence remotely, if I'd waited to come in and fix it in person, this mess would have added hours or days to the recovery. Where are the consultants now? Owen jerked his thumb toward the break room. Sleeping, they've been here all night. I walked to the break room. 3 men in wrinkled business casuals sprawled across chairs, exhausted. I slammed the door open hard enough to bounce it off the wall. They jerked awake. Get up, pack your equipment, you're done here. The youngest one blinked at me. Who are you? I'm the new CTO, and you just caused about $50,000 in damage to equipment you didn't understand. You have 10 minutes to get out of this building before I have security remove you. The older consultant stood up, trying to assert authority. We have a contract with Helix Dynamics. Had a contract, it's terminated. Your firm will be receiving a bill for the damage. 9 minutes. I walked back to the IT department. Owen was watching with something like awe on his face. You're really back? Like, permanently? Permanently, and things are going to change around here, starting with cleaning up this mess. Let's get the server room secured. We spent the next hour methodically reconnecting equipment, testing systems, documenting the damage. Lisa joined us, and even Keith came down from help desk to help. It felt like the old days, the team working together, building something instead of fighting fires. When the last cable was reconnected and the server room was secure again, Owen turned to me. "Zoe, I'm sorry for not saying anything when they fired you. I should have." I held up a hand. "You would have been fired too. I know how it works. Fresh start, okay, for all of us." He nodded, relief visible on his face. "Fresh start, and Zoe, welcome home." I left his office and walked down to the IT department. Owen and Lisa were staring at their screens in disbelief as systems came back online. Owen saw me first. "Zoe, what are you doing here? Did you fix this?" I smiled. "I'm back. CTO as of this morning. The systems are recovering. I need you both to monitor the startup sequence and flag anything that doesn't come back cleanly." Lisa's expression was pure confusion. "You're our CTO now? What happened to Garrett?" I kept my voice neutral. "Leadership changes. Walter will communicate the details. Right now, let's focus on getting everything stable." We spent the next 2 hours monitoring the recovery, checking logs, verifying that every system was functioning properly. By late morning, Helix Dynamics was fully operational again. Email was flowing. Applications were running. Clients were able to access their services. The crisis was over. I called a meeting with the full IT team. About 20 people crowded into the conference room. I know everyone is tired and probably has questions. As of this morning, I'm the Chief Technology Officer. Garrett is transitioning out of that role. The network outage has been resolved and all systems are stable. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be reviewing our operations and making some changes to prevent this kind of crisis in the future. A hand went up. "Keith." "Zoe, what caused the outage? Was it an attack?" I'd prepared for this question. The root cause was a failure in the automated management systems, specifically a shutdown sequence that was triggered incorrectly. I've disabled the problematic code and will be implementing additional safeguards. Technical enough to sound credible, vague enough not to be a confession. Another question from Lisa. "Is this permanent, you being CTO? Because if it is, that's great. No offense to Garrett, but it's been rough." Others nodded in agreement. "It's permanent. I've signed a contract. I'm here for the long term." The relief in the room was palpable. We talked for another 30 minutes. I listened to their concerns, their frustrations with how things had been run, their ideas for improvements. It felt good, like coming home. That afternoon, I met with Walter again. This time, Denise was there too, along with the CFO, Angela Price. Walter started the meeting. "Zoe, Angela has been reviewing the vendor contracts you flagged. Can you explain your concerns?" I pulled up the documentation I'd prepared. Apex Technical Solutions has received $900,000 over the past 18 months for consulting services. I have no record of any deliverables. The company appears to be a shell entity, and the beneficial owner is Garrett Strauss. Angela's expression was grim. "I've confirmed everything Zoe found. Additionally, there are other questionable contracts. Total exposure is approximately $2 million. Walter looked sick. $2 million. My stepbrother embezzled $2 million from my company. Angela nodded. That's what the evidence suggests. We'll need to conduct a full forensic audit. Denise spoke up. What do we do? Do we report this to law enforcement? Walter was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. We give him a choice. He resigns immediately, repays what he stole, and we don't prosecute. Or we turn everything over to the authorities. The meeting ended. I spent the rest of the afternoon working with Owen to secure the systems. The next morning, I arrived to find security at Garrett's office. Walter had moved fast. Garrett was inside, packing his belongings, looking diminished. He saw me through the glass and glared. I didn't gloat, didn't even smile, just walked past to my new office. The weeks that followed were transformative. With Garrett gone and real authority to make decisions, I rebuilt the IT department properly. I hired talented people. I implemented better processes. I invested in training and development. Morale improved dramatically. Productivity increased. 6 months into my tenure as CTO, Helix Dynamics landed another major client. This time, the technical implementation went flawlessly. We delivered on time, exceeded expectations. In the celebration meeting, Walter praised the team. He also, for the first time, publicly acknowledged what had happened before. I want to recognize that our technology success is built on a foundation that Zoe created years ago and has now strengthened in her role as CTO. I also want to acknowledge that I made mistakes in the past. I didn't always recognize talent when it was right in front of me. That won't happen again. It wasn't a dramatic speech, but in a room full of executives who knew the history, it was significant. Acknowledgement, finally. A year passed. Helix Dynamics thrived. The IT department became a model of efficiency and innovation. I wasn't just the technical expert anymore. I was a business leader who happened to have deep technical expertise. Walter promoted me to senior vice president. I started getting invited to board meetings, not just to present, but to participate in strategic discussions. 2 years after returning to Helix, the board announced their decision. I was named CEO of Helix Dynamics, the first woman to hold the position, the youngest CEO in the company's history, the person who'd started as a network architect and risen to the top. My first week as CEO, I called an all-hands meeting. I stood at the front, looking at faces I'd worked with for years. Thank you all for being here. I'm honored to be your CEO. I want to start by acknowledging something. My path to this position wasn't traditional. I've been fired from this company. I've been underestimated. I've had my work stolen and my contributions dismissed. I share that not to dwell on the past, but to say this. I understand what it feels like to be overlooked. And I promise you that as long as I'm CEO, this will be a company that values talent over politics, results over relationships, and merit over anything else. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Owen, then Lisa, then others. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding. Now, 7 years after that 11:30 a.m. shutdown, I'm still CEO of Helix Dynamics. The company is thriving. Sometimes I think about the choice I made. The sabotage, the manipulation, the revenge disguised as justice. Was it right? Probably not. Was it justified? I've made my peace with it. I fought back. It worked. And while I can't publicly advocate for the methods I used, I can say this: I'm proud of where I am, proud of what I've built, proud that I didn't just accept being dismissed and forgotten. If you've made it this far, if my story resonated with you, consider subscribing to the Payback Office channel. We're building a community of people who believe that workplace justice matters. We're working toward 8,000 subscribers, and having you as part of this journey would mean everything. Hit that subscribe button and let's keep sharing these stories together. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, document your work, know your worth, and never let anyone make you forget what you're capable of achieving.